Hello everyone, I'm David Schuster. As we approach the 2024 election, the spotlight on the two main candidates is growing more intense. No matter where you look online, you'll find strong opinions, both good and bad. But is there a double standard when it comes to how Kamala Harris is treated compared to Donald Trump? According to Peter Baker from the New York Times, there just might be.
Yeah, it's really striking when they say that she's not willing to take questions, and they take questions and say, well, you're not allowed to fact check me. I'm allowed to say anything I want, no matter how true it is or not true, and you're not allowed to point out any contrary information or facts. You're right about that. I mean, I think that he is mainly stuck to friendly interviews, of course, himself. Conservative media, friendly media, not just friendly media, people who are openly on his side, who are participating in the campaign in some way or another.
So Donald Trump is talking to people helping his campaign and to friendly media. And let's be clear, this is a very cautious approach. Donald Trump has refused to participate in any additional debates, perhaps to avoid the self-inflicted damage that Trump might cause. He also recently canceled a primetime interview with 60 Minutes, citing various reasons, including complaints about fact-checking and demanding an apology for his 2020 interview. But even with this more conservative media strategy, Donald Trump has not held back from spreading outright falsehoods on the campaign trail, something we've become all too familiar with since his rise in U.S. politics.
But you're right to say that he, is called out on telling things that are not true, that are lies, that are false information, and doesn't seem to actually be moving the needle. We did a fact check on him a couple of weeks back where we looked at a typical Trump rally. And we looked at a typical Harris rally. And we said, okay, what are the statements that were made in these two rallies could be called false or misleading? And his number was something like 63 in a single rally, and hers was like 6, so 10 times as much. So obviously you don't want to call it false equivalence. It's not that she doesn't say things, as any politician does, that aren't true or that are misleading, but the proportion here is obviously very striking. And it is, I think, something we see more and more. We could talk about the story about his age if you want, but I mean, clearly if you go back and watch his videos and you do any kind of analysis of how things have changed over the years, he is increasingly willing to say things that are not just untrue, but are so detached from reality, like the cats and dogs being eaten, and yet it doesn't seem to be rebounding against him.
Indeed, if you look at polling, the frequency of Trump's lies is not rebounding against him. This brings us to a glaring double standard that Kamala Harris and the Democrats continually face. While Donald Trump can lie or make outrageous statements with little impact on his support, Harris and her party are held to a much higher standard. Whether it's about climate change, where Republicans can ignore or deny the science, while Democrats are pressured to deliver flawless, detailed plans, or broader issues like safeguarding democracy itself. Democrats face scrutiny Republicans rarely encounter. The Republican Party, especially under Donald Trump, seems to have a much lower bar to clear, even as Democrats fight to preserve democratic norms and tackle global challenges. The Democrats are expected to navigate these issues perfectly, while Republicans can undermine those same norms and still keep voter support. And the imbalance is deeper than public perception. The Electoral College gives Republicans a real advantage, allowing them to win the presidency even if they lose the popular vote, something we've seen repeatedly. One of the most striking aspects of the current political landscape is how the GOP has effectively decided to pretend that the January 6th insurrection never happened. This was not just a moment in history, it was an unprecedented attack on the very heart of our democracy. Yet for many Republican leaders, it's as if that day has been erased from the national narrative. Instead of acknowledging the violence and chaos that erupted as rioters stormed the Capitol seeking to overturn the results of a free and fair election, many in the GOP have chosen to downplay or even justify the events of that day. Some Republicans refer to the rioters as tourists, attempting to paint a picture of innocence that starkly contrasts with the reality of the violent mob that sought to disrupt the certification of electoral votes. This denial is not just a matter of historical revisionism, it has real consequences by dismissing the severity of January 6th. The GOP is sending a message that they are willing to tolerate violence in pursuit of political goals. They've opted for a narrative that casts the insurrection in a sympathetic light, while those who defended democracy, like Mike Pence, are often painted as the villains. It's a blatant attempt to rewrite the story to fit their political agenda, prioritizing party loyalty over accountability.
We're back with breaking news in the January 6th investigation up on Capitol Hill. Phil Waldron has been subpoenaed by the Select Committee. He is that retired U.S. Army colonel connected to the 38-page PowerPoint that contained a blueprint for overturning the 2020 election. the one that was sent to Mark Meadows, that Mark Meadows later turned over to the January 6th committee. In a letter announcing the subpoena, committee chairman Benny Thompson writes this, quote, Mr. Waldron reportedly played a role in promoting claims of election fraud and circulating potential strategies for challenging the results of the 2020 election. He was also apparently in communication with officials in the Trump White House and in Congress, discussing his theories in the weeks leading up to the January 6th attack. The document he reportedly provided to administration officials and members of Congress is an alarming blueprint for overturning a nationwide election.
This approach also emboldens further extremism within the Republican Party. By refusing to confront the actions of those involved in the insurrection, the GOP is creating a dangerous precedent, suggesting that violence can be a valid political tool. Meanwhile, those who stand firmly against this ideology, who insist on the importance of upholding democratic norms and the rule of law, these people are often marginalized from the Republican Party or dismissed. Now, as we head into the 2024 election, this refusal to acknowledge January 6th poses a critical and crucial question. What does it say about a Republican Party that chooses to ignore a direct assault on democracy? And what are the implications for our political future if this denial continues to be the party line? The stakes are incredibly high, and the willingness of the GOP to pretend this insurrection never happened could very well shape the trajectory of our democracy for years to come. And this year, the seeds of an insurrection to block democracy are already being planted. Over the past few weeks, Republicans have been promoting polls and claims that Donald Trump has gained ground and is now leading Kamala Harris in every battleground state. All of these polls have been done by new polling organizations and groups with ties to Donald Trump. In other words, they are biased in favor of Donald Trump. And experts say the polling methodology in these numbers is flawed. It is skewed. The polling samples are not statistically significant. The data is unreliable. But MAGA world and its conservative media cheerleaders are conditioning the American people to think that Donald Trump is going to win the election, perhaps by an electoral college landslide. And when that doesn't happen, these same MAGA folks are going to say, well, the election must have been fraudulent. After all, the polls had Donald Trump winning. The Democrats must have cheated, they will say. Donald Trump is going to say it, and his supporters are going to echo that if he loses. Because once again, Democrats are going to face a double standard. Even though the election is the only poll that matters, and the only one that actually includes everybody who votes, Republicans are going to claim that if Kamala Harris wins, it's the election that should be thrown out, not the unscientific and flawed polls Republicans conducted and published in the final stretch. Because in MAGA world, anything contradicting Donald Trump is wrong. Anything supporting Trump, even Fantasyland polls, must be right. It's a simple equation. Reality is for Democrats, lies are for Donald Trump Republicans. They say Kamala Harris is hiding and Donald Trump is talking to the media. No. January 6th was a peaceful protest, they say. No. Kamala Harris lies as much as Donald Trump, they insist. Nope. The pre-election polls, no matter how unscientific, are more accurate than Election Day. No. This is where we are, America. Thankfully, our election system and the courts are built for facts and evidence. We saw that in 2020, and we will see it again in 2024. The question is, how much damage will our nation have to endure to get to the truth and have both major political parties accept it? These are challenging times, I know, but it's also a time when we can show we are a nation and a democracy that will persevere. I'm David Schuster. Thanks for joining us.